Hello and welcome to the 13th edition of KASHISH Mumbai International Queer Film Festival, which has returned to the theatres, Liberty Cinema, and you all must have been watching hundreds of films at KASHISH 2022. And today we are in conversation with that amazing filmmaker, Shelly Thompson, and the super amazing actress, Maya Henry of the film, Dawn, her dad, and the tractor, which you must have already seen at KASHISH. The film will play also online on Shift 72 for 48 hours. So welcome, Shelly and Maya. You're joining from Nova Scotia, and Maya, you're joining from Toronto. And Bhagi, the moderator, joining from Mumbai. So she's been part of the preview team for many years now, and also has been moderating several panels and Q&A. So welcome, Bhagi. And I hope you have a great conversation to bring out the essence of the film and to also kind of have a great chat with Maya and Shelly. Thank you so much.
Hi, Maya. Hi, Shelly. It is such a pleasure to be having this conversation with you. I was completely blown by the film. I can't wait to unpack all the things that the film has. I'm going to start with something very basic. Shelly, could you tell us a little bit about the origins of this film?
Yes, certainly. And just thank you so much for having us. It's a treat. And this is my second visit to KASHISH. My first film was there 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm really thrilled to be a part of the KASHISH family. It's lovely. So this film began its journey when my child began their journey in transition. And I have a son, a young trans man who is a son. He's a singer-songwriter. Actually, he and Maya know each other. And so we've adopted Maya a little bit. As my son began his particular journey, I think any parent of a trans person will understand when I say we understood that we had a journey to go on as well, quite a different type of journey than our child was on. As that journey happened, and we realized the sense of bereavement and loss, but also renewal and change that we felt, it seemed important to find a way to share this story that was focused on a family's response rather than a focus on a trans individual's physical or emotional. I mean, there is a very emotional journey in this, but we didn't want to focus on that kind of nitty-gritty, which can also sometimes be possibly a little invasive, and certainly coming from a non-trans individual like myself. As a cisgendered person, I recognize very much what parts of the story were mine to tell and what parts were not. So so that's where it started. I had my son practically, literally sitting on my shoulder for most of the writing of this, because he's my biggest fan and my biggest critic. The other thing, of course, that was really helpful and has been life-changing for me is the connection my son has made for me to his community of.
To hear the origins of this story, and I really like the fact that you're looking at focusing on the family and recognizing what are the stories one can tell. The next question I was actually going to aim at Maya. How was it playing Dawn? How did you come into the story? How was the experience taking that character in? How did you need to bring some of your real life experiences in? Like that context would be great.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, thank you so much for having me here and for showing our film at your festival. Yeah, it was a journey that started many years ago. I would say getting to read with Rob and getting to work with Shelly and take in her direction just on the fly. It had been a while since I'd done an audition that was like that exciting. And so just like seeing where the story was going and everything, just all the parts moving together. And then it's very similar to my own experience in a lot of ways. I come from a small town in Ontario, not Nova Scotia, but it's pretty similar. It's in Canada. And so I was able to take a lot of my own experience as a trans woman, having moved to Toronto to find my community, and then going back to my small town and reconnecting with my family members and with my community as well. So just taking all those bits and pieces from my own life and trying to transfer that to the character and give it some genuine honesty. Yeah.
And I love the end, like towards the end when like people come in to help with the tractor, you know. Shelly, could you tell us a little bit about how you went about creating that world? Were there any challenges? Did you have an intention set? And therefore, because all the characters are so they're pretty fleshed out and they have their journey. And this idea of them just coming together around the campfire was fascinating. If you could tell us a little bit about that, and then I'll check with Maya a bit more.
That's a great question and really interesting. And there's a scene in the film where Maya's character, where Dawn is talking to a little boy, and she says to the little boy, you know, my mom said to me that for me, my husband said that to our child when we were talking about where he was sitting on the binary and what it was, and my husband was responding, you know, about the binary and was talking about the binary that we live by. And he said to my son, he said, look, you know, it's a circle. There's so many places around that campfire where any one person can sit at any time in their life, and it can change. And you know, we just have to recognize that. And there's loads of room around it. And that image that my husband gave me has been so central to my way of going forward with that film and with the characters in this film, and the notion of community as a place where we can gather and move around and have room to be who we need to be in any given moment, because we all know that changes over our life. We are different people. I'm a different person now than I was at 21. I'll be a different person, you know, in another 20 years. So gathering the community was very important. The story of the tractor was central to it because it's basically about relationships impacted by mothers and struggles with mothers and working things out with mothers and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And my mother was an extraordinary woman and grew up on a farm in northern Alberta. She was estranged from her family early in her life, but the stories that she brought to me about the things that she loved about family and farm life included learning to drive a tractor. And so the tractor was significant. And I was also shared a story with a very close friend of mine in Antigonish where we shot. His father and he were estranged. His father had a tractor that he loved that was dilapidated and rusted and not working. And so he said to his dad, I'm going to come and we're going to fix your tractor. And they didn't talk about his illness. They didn't talk about how much time he had left. They talked about the tractor. But as they talked about the tractor, they rebuilt that relationship. And when this young man's father died, they had repaired their relationship. The tractor wasn't finished, but they had repaired their relationship. It still chokes me up, that story, to know, you know, and I know that young man and I know that tractor. And so that sense of community that his story was there, my mother's story was there, the community of Antigonish where the story was set was very, very important to me. And I think, and Maya will be able to speak to this, we felt incredibly supported by that community as we shot the film. So it epitomized and it demonstrated what we wanted the film to be and how we wanted it to reflect on the notion that trans individuals need the love of a family and a community to thrive and do well.
I love the metaphor of the tractor, and it's so nice to hear you. In fact, this was going to be one of my questions anyway, to see how all of that like holds it together, and the idea of repair and the time it takes, the intention behind it, that it's not a one-person job, that there is a history to it, that there's context, that this one tractor could mean and symbolize so much more, beautifully woven through. And it's even nicer to know that this is a real life experience that you've stitched into the film. Yeah, so these are two like very strong aspects that have just come in from life into fiction, which is probably one of the reasons the film feels so real and it's so touching. Maya, how is it for you, this notion of this particular community? Because one of the things I was looking at is everyone in that same town responded significantly differently. You know, there was and a lot of acceptance and a lot of bullying, and in that same space. And I was like, I couldn't put a finger on what was the larger perception of people in town. But at the same time, there's this dude in the mechanic shop with his real, type A bullying. Yeah, how did you navigate that? And was there any personal references as well that you brought into it?
There's a stigma around smaller communities and smaller towns being less accepting and small-minded. And so I think that this film did a great job of exploring that and why that is, and also showing that acceptance can be found anywhere, and you can find pockets of your community and your people anywhere. So Dawn's very lucky to find that coffee shop and to find those new relationships in a town that she never thought it would exist in, and so she's constantly proved wrong all the time. I think Dawn as a character represents someone who is also a new city member, and she thinks, okay, the city is where I'm safe, it's where I'm who I am, it's where people are smart and they're open-minded, and then she has all these negative associations with her childhood, so she brings that with her. And so I think her journey is learning to forgive in a lot of ways, but also learning to understand that people are all at different points in their lives, and there's many different people who can accept you and love you wherever you are. And so that's why I think we have so many different reactions. I think it's very realistic, and I think that it shows that a lot of the time people just make mistakes. It's not always malicious. You do have Marty, who's in the mechanic shop. He's obviously doing this from a more malicious place, and I would say that's very realistic as well. Growing up for me as well, I never had the opportunity to transition while I was a kid. So in school, I definitely encountered bullying for being feminine and was called a lot of homophobic slurs. And so I think that's very true of Marty's character. He represents that kind of small-minded bigotry. But then you have characters that are a part of the community that used to know Dawn when Dawn was Donald, and they loved Dawn. And now they just need a minute to love Dawn again and to know the new Dawn and know that Dawn is still Dawn, who Dawn always was, but just a different exterior. And so I experienced that as well. So having to kind of go through those awkward moments is very real as well. And Dawn does that throughout the film. You have Sandra, who shows up with a casserole, and she's so freaked out at realizing that Dawn was Donald that she runs away, and she's in such fear. So I personally haven't had that experience. Luckily, no one's ran away, but I can relate to it for sure.
And Dawn just comes across as such a resilient human, like throughout, just the way, and she holds so much space for the people around her. And that struck me more than anything else. To me, the strongest character in the film is actually Dawn, because she watches Sandra's reaction. She navigates a relationship with her sister. She understands that this is, and it's a beautiful relationship because there's some sibling rivalry. At the same time, there's, I don't know what's happening, but it's not so bigoted. It's just that I don't know, I've not done this, is what she says. I've not done this. I don't know how to do this. And Dawn's the one who goes like, yeah, but we'll figure it out. That's a very strong notion. Was there a lot of research that needed to go into building the character of Dawn?
I don't think there wasn't a lot of research going into the character of Dawn because for me as a writer, because I felt I knew those people. I was seeing those individuals as I was meeting my son's friends, and I was hearing their stories, many of which were nothing like as positive as Maya's, frankly. And they were incredibly resilient and determined to stay kind. Maya's story, as she said, is very, very close to the reality of this character. So what Maya brought on set, I just had to watch her and give her direction that was gradations of experience rather than trying to change what she was doing in any way, because she knows it. And yeah.
How was the direction, acting, writing dynamic in all of this? Did the script start off in one way, and when it hit the floor, were there significant changes that took place? I'm assuming this was written before Maya came on board. So did her presence also change things? Could you tell us a little bit about that, both of you?
The script didn't change massively from where Maya saw it for the very first time to where we actually shot it. It did change. There were things that we shifted. There were scenes that we lost. You know, I learned so much from this script and this experience. I tend to overwrite and overcomplicate, and there was still some of that left in this script, and there won't be in my next film. Yeah, it was fairly similar to what Maya saw in the first instance. I think the main thing that was there at the beginning and was there at the end was the intention. You know, the intention to tell a family story for a family audience.
But yeah, I think it worked. And I remember like on set on that day, we had like a life imitates art moment where the tractor that I was riding broke down right when we were about to shoot. And so everyone from the town was coming to check it out. There was people like looking at all the parts, seeing why it wasn't working properly, and coming together to try to fix it as a town within a town, because that's what the film's about, right? So I always remember that when I look back at that scene, and I think that's so special. So just
it is. And my next thing was actually, well, we'll split it into two. The first is the cinematography, which was beautiful. Just the way in which certain conversations were had. There's that one shot where it's through the tractor that you can see the shop that they enter. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the cinematography. And two is the music. The music in this film holds the narrative together so well. And I definitely want to hear more about the journey of how that came together.
Well, the cinematography, yeah, it's pretty lovely. And I think Maya would agree. Nova Scotia is a beautiful woman or a beautiful man who deserves to be shot in every light, because they reveal themselves they were very much character in the film. And Kevin Fraser, who was our cinematographer, is a guy in Nova Scotia who's very much in demand. He has that kind of cinematographer's eyes that because he sees it, it makes it magic. I can't even explain it, but his act of looking at something through a camera somehow transforms it. It was a very interesting, as a first feature film, it was an incredible learning experience. What I would do again and what I will never do again. But Kevin is a consummate professional and an amazing collaborator. So the shots that he created, one of my favorite shots, I don't know if you remember this shot where Maya's on the cliff and she's walking down wanting to be by herself, and Kevin sees her, and then he just holds the two of them in that shot. So the father alone down on the seashore, you know, lost in his grief, and Dawn up on the top of the cliff looking down at her father, recognizing his grief, and then she turns and walks away, and then we move into the dad. And I just thought that was such a beautiful, accomplished piece of storytelling, with not a single word spoken, and just with the cinematographer making those choices. So that's Kevin. And he was wonderful to work with. I don't know, Maya, if you have anything to say as an actor about that cinematographer-actor relationship.
And how would it been for you to actually be part of it and then to watch it, because it would be different?
Oh, definitely. I was kind of like keeping an eye on things as we were shooting, because I had amazing hair and makeup team as well on set, and they would have a line to the monitors, and they would sometimes have screenshots that they would save for me, so I'd be able to get like an idea sometimes of like what a shot would look like. And so it was just so magical, because it looks like a movie, right, when you're seeing it on the camera. So in person, I try not to think about it, because I'm just trying to give that performance and not think like, oh, I'm in a movie right now, you know. Even though it's hard, it was my first feature film, so I was kind of like just jittery and excited. But yeah, it was amazing to see what Kevin did with all of the scenes that we had with the night shoots and all the, I don't want to give any spoilers, but yeah, just everything that was done was just, it's so fun and fascinating to see after the fact, and chill. And he brought such a great, amazing energy to every scene. And I felt so comfortable to be able to perform for him and for the camera because of that relationship that I had with him. I think if I didn't have such a positive relationship, I might be more nervous.
Post-production was, I'm sure, my heart goes out to all the filmmakers in India who have been and are probably still going through all this mess. But you know, post-production in COVID has been kind of a nightmare because we couldn't be in the same room. You know, I was supposed to go to Toronto to do post from Nova Scotia, and I couldn't because at that point we couldn't travel, or we wouldn't travel. And the post house that we were working with in Toronto weren't in person. They didn't have anybody in the room. So if you can imagine, just for people who don't know much about post-production in film, it's a fascinating process, but the best part of it is being in a room with other individuals, all looking or hearing the same things. And if you're not, if you're in separate places where I am looking at the film on my computer and the person doing my color correct and adjusting, they're looking at the film on their computer, and the person who's doing the special effects is looking at the stuff on their computer. So if you can imagine trying to bring those different views together, the cinematographer is looking on his computer and he's saying, no, I think it should be a little more blue, and I'm saying, no, it should be a little more green. And you know, it's like, oh my God, that experience is agony. So I hope I never have to do post in that situation again, because it was much more time consuming. It was much less collaborative. The people were fantastic. We had a wonderful team, and the music itself, we had a composer, Scott McMillan, who's a beloved composer here in Nova Scotia. And then I really wanted the voice of the land, the voice of the town, to be Rose Cousins' voice. We actually started with the fire scene. And that was the first song that went in. And I went, because I was exploring a different way of doing the fire scene with the edit. And, you know, I don't think it was very popular at first, but anyway, I still love it. So Rose wrote 4 new songs for us, and we used, there's a prize in Canada called the Junos. I don't know if you guys are aware of them, but it's a big music prize here. And the album that Bravado, the song Bravado came from, and a couple other songs in the film, those songs are off of Rose's album Bravado, which won the Juno the first year that we were able to come out of COVID, but she had made it 2 years before. She couldn't release the album, she couldn't see it through, etc. But we got to put it in our film, and then everything happened after. Yeah. So yeah, she's an amazing songwriter, and she was supported by another amazing songwriter, Bria Isabel, who is a songwriter and a producer, who produced the songs mostly in the film.
I have 2 more questions. One is about the writing process, because I know this went through a grant of sorts, or a residency. It'd be lovely to hear a little bit about that. And then the last one.
Yeah, it got several prizes in the writing, and I think that showed that I thought that was really positive, because I felt it wasn't so much a response to the writing, which I could see all the flaws and still do in, but it was a response to the subject matter and the understanding that it needed to be responded to and recognized and celebrated. So I feel that that's what those organizations responded to most strongly. The first was the Women in the Director's Chair, which is an organization in Canada, which gave us a production grant, which was services in lieu, but it was quite a big, it made up a major component of our budget. And so that was important. And then it was selected by the Writers Lab of New York, the New York Writers Lab, which is supported by Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman and Oprah. And it particularly celebrates the writing of women over 40. And I'm over 40, just over 40. And then it was also selected, it was one of 10 films selected internationally by an organization called Breaking Through the Lens, which is, again, it's another female-centric organization working to connect female filmmakers with decision makers and financiers. I was proud that this film about a group that I love so much and feel so much investment in terms of their safety and well-being was recognized in that way by those organizations.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Last bit, Maya, to you first. Have you all had any physical screenings? And if so, what is the experience they've been? Have you been able to hear what the audience has to say? Have there been any particular responses that moved you or made you, just what's the response been? I think what's been your experience in these physical screenings?
Yeah, so I believe I've had 2 festival experiences in person, which is really lucky during COVID times. So I went back to Halifax for the Finn Atlantic Festival, and that was obviously amazing because most people who were part of the film came back and saw the film as well. And so just reconnecting with everyone and sharing in this joy was amazing. Such a positive reaction. And I felt like I was visiting family after being away for a while. So that was just so heartwarming and sweet. And then Shelly and I also went to the other side of the country, to Vancouver. And then we took a little trip to Whistler, where we went to the Whistler Film Festival and screened the film as well. And that was cool because we got to meet with people who were watching the film that we didn't know as well. And I remember there was a really lovely gay couple that participated in the Q&A, and they were from South Africa, I think. And they gave like such a glowing, warm review to us in person about how much it meant to be able to see the queer experience on screen and have it not be something that's so sensational. And, like sometimes in film, it can be really dramatized, and then it seems like a life that's just so far away from the viewer, And so this film, which I love, really brought the humanity and made it something very accessible. And so they were kind of appreciating that and talking about that. And yeah, so having those kind of responses in person, especially during COVID, felt so fortunate, and it made me so happy to be able to go to those festivals.
Yeah. And we've had, Whistler was fun, and those 2 women were fantastic, but I've been to more live screenings, I think, that Maya has. And I've just been, I've been so proud and so moved. All filmmakers are hard on themselves, and all you see are the things you would change. But the fact is, I've been in rooms where young people have stood up and said, this film will change my life because I can talk to my parents now. I've had families write to me and tell me that they went away after watching this film and were able to have a conversation they never dreamed they would be able to have. And now they can find the way to properly support their trans son. I've had trans people, one of the women in Nova Scotia who's recognized as one of the queer community leaders is a trans woman of color, a beautiful woman called Cochran. And she was in our film very briefly. But she has been such a significant mentor to people in Halifax. And, she and our Jenny operator was another trans woman. They have stood up publicly and said how much it means to them to see a trans film like this, which is about family, which legitimizes and celebrates their experience without sensationalizing or physicalizing it and dwelling on the physical. And so I've had that in every. I've had really incredibly positive experiences in every live viewing. And in fact, I can't think of a negative one. The negative experiences have come online. And they haven't even been hugely significant, but they're just occasionally you get idiots, making
the
comments.
Trollers, who are saying things for the sake of saying them.
Exactly. And to be frank, the positive has so outweighed the negative.
That is really incredible to hear. with this thank you for this Q&A. I feel like I could honestly just talk to you all for hours about so many little bits and
We can talk for Canada, two of us.
But I wanted to just say there were two aspects in this that stood out for me. Two quotes that just made me go like, oh, and sort of hold the foundation of the film. One was when Don says, before you learn to put something together, you've got to learn to take it apart. And I thought that was so meaningful, just from in every context, to be able to repair, you're going to have to understand the different parts. You have to break it apart in order to be able to put it back together in the way. And that was a beautiful moment. And the other was, of course, the campfire, where there's room for everyone at the campfire and everyone has a different perspective. As a metaphor, that's going to definitely stay. So I wanted to say thank you for this, and thank you for this Q&A as well.
Thank
you so much for having us.
You're the first person to ever pick up on that. Before you can put something back together, you have to be able to take it apart. Nobody has ever mentioned that, and I kept thinking, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that's going to land. But so thank you, it landed, and I'm very grateful that it did.
I paused the film and I was like, what are you saying? Stop. And I had to take deep breaths and go like, okay, this is going to stick with me. I have it on a post-it note next to my bed. Like that's what it does. So
that's so sweet.
Wow, that's
thank
great.
you.
Well, thank you for your interest, and thanks for having us.
I have one question to Maya. What does it mean to be a celebrity sensation on Instagram, on YouTube? Does it constantly, you have to continuously be yourself and put out stories? How does it feel?
Yeah, I would say it's very, very different from acting. It's similar in that I'm used to performing to a camera, but it's not really performing. It's just being myself to a certain degree. It's prepared me in a lot of ways for any kind of reaction. So like Shelly was saying, maybe we got a little bit of negativity online, the trolls for this film, but to be honest, I was expecting more because I'm used to it online, having been posting since 2014. And when you share your personal journey and people critique that, it's a lot more biting than I would say just like sharing a performance and then people critiquing your performance, because it's your life, so I think I've been pretty open to feedback for so long that it's prepared me for being an actress as well. So yeah, it's interesting, but I'm glad that I can share my voice with the community and share my experience, and hopefully in some ways educate people who may have otherwise not had a trans person in their life to be able to learn from and contribute to desensationalizing the experience and just adding my own voice.
In fact, in India right now, it's a hot topic whether to have transgender actors to play transgender parts in films. And in India, it's very rare that we actually have transgender actors playing transgender parts. Hopefully, it'll change very soon. But thank you, Maya and Shelly, for making it happen. It's a beautiful story told in real voice through Maya per se. And I wish you both could have been in Mumbai. But next time we'll make it happen for sure.
Next time.
Next time.
Sure. And I would like to thank Consulate General of Canada for supporting the film and supporting this Q&A. So thank you so much. And big hugs to all of you. And hopefully we'll meet again very soon in Mumbai or in Toronto or in Nova Scotia, wherever we meet again.
Yes, I'd love that. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
It's been such a lovely conversation.